Good Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome back to North Central Weather Center. In today's forecast, we'll be talking about significant severe weather, especially on Wednesday this week across the southern Great Lakes, and an expanding heat wave will bring record breaking temperatures to the middle of the country as we go through this week. So, first, here, looking at the visible satellite imagery this morning across the United States. We are seeing an MCS, a mesoscale convective system, up across Nebraska, moving into western Iowa here as of this morning. And this is on a weakening trend as it pushes further to the east southeast and is on the northeasternmost periphery of the ridge of high pressure. It's centered down here across the eastern four corners and the western high plains. It's on the northeastern periphery of that, where that is a ridge rider type of MCS complex. But we see heat headlines starting to build into our north central states this morning. We have in the orange shaded colors here from Kansas up through central Nebraska, here in the south central portions of South Dakota. We have heat advisories starting to build in, and these will expand in coverage as we go through this week, and possibly even seeing some excessive heat warnings as well, as the heat will be on. But look at today's high temperatures. With the ridge building, we are well into the triple digits this afternoon in our southern regions across Kansas, getting into the Ozarks, and even perhaps as far north as southern Nebraska. Temperatures there will be 100 to 108 as we get into this afternoon, with middle and upper 90s further to the north into the Dakotas, Minnesota, Iowa, and even into western Illinois this afternoon. But when you factor in the dew points and the moisture out there, this is your afternoon heat index. So this adds more fuel to the fire, where we have heat indexes in excess of 100 degrees Fahrenheit as far north as South Dakota, southern Minnesota, and northwestern Iowa as we go into this afternoon. So make sure to stay hydrated out here. If you live all across the north central states, whether you're in the Ohio Valley and have heat indexes into the low 90s, or you have heat indexes in excess of 100 degrees, you want to make sure to stay hydrated throughout the day. We are tracking storm chances as well. We have a slight risk for severe weather. That's a level 2 out of 5 on the scale. This covers the eastern Dakotas, getting into southwestern Minnesota, northwest Iowa, and down into parts of Nebraska today. And what this will bring is the threat for damaging winds and hail with an isolated tornado threat. So as of this morning, that complex, that MCS, is on a weakening trend as it pushes into western Iowa. Not that big of a deal. A couple showers will be possible up here into North Dakota, northwestern Minnesota, but those also should not be a big deal this morning. As we get into the afternoon, that shortwave trough up here across portions of the southern Canadian provinces, moving across southern Manitoba, will be acting as a source for energy for these storms to develop across the eastern Dakotas later on this afternoon. And these will push into northwestern Minnesota, and these could pose a risk for damaging winds in excess of 60 miles per hour, quarter size hail or larger at times, and a brief isolated tornado. But I want to stress the main mode of severe weather today will be damaging winds and large hail, followed by the tornado risk, which is secondary. And then as we go into tonight, we're going to see more scattered storms develop. Now, it does remain a little bit unclear how well organized an MCS can develop here as we go into this evening. Some weather models have a more well-defined MCS with a full line of storms pushing through central Minnesota back into South Dakota and propagating east-southeastward across the Midwest, while this model is only showing a broken line of storms. So if a well-organized MCS gets together, a more widespread threat for damaging winds will be possible. But right now we're going with the Storm Prediction Center's thinking of just scattered convection, which means more scattered severe weather and not as widespread as we go into tonight. Looking at rainfall amounts here going through Wednesday morning, it does look pretty decent in some areas into the eastern Dakotas, south central Minnesota, getting into northeastern Iowa, and then propagating as far east as southwest Wisconsin. We could be seeing anywhere from a half an inch and upwards of an inch of rain as we go through the Wednesday morning time frame. So a nice drenching rain here, especially for southern Minnesota that has missed out on a lot of these storm complexes this season. And then as we go into midweek here on Wednesday tomorrow, that short wave begins to move across the southern Great Lakes region. And then this will start to cause trouble as we have more of a flattened out jet stream over the top. But the temperatures to the south will be heating up in a big way through the end of the week. Looking here at Wednesday, these are tomorrow's high temperatures. Pending any thunderstorm activity, we're going to be well into the 90s and the triple digits down here across our southern and central areas. And then behind that as well, we'll be heating back up here with renewed sunshine across portions of the Dakotas into Minnesota. But like I said, where the thunderstorm activity will be on Wednesday across the western and central Great Lakes, temperatures could be held down into the 70s and 80s here with the rain cooled air. And then as we go into Thursday, we're heating up all across our areas here, except for northern North Dakota. We have a little bit of a cold front dipping to the south here. That will also be bringing our temperatures down into the 70s and 80s on Thursday. But further south, it's all about the heat. Temperatures will be in the 90s and toward the triple digits on Thursday, and much of the same on Friday, with that cold front dipping a little bit further toward the south here into the upper Midwest. So areas behind the cold front, a nice cool down ahead of the cold front. Yeah, it's hot. So we're going to see more 90s and hundreds there on Friday from the Ohio Valley through the Illinois Valley and westward toward the Central Plains. Temperatures could be again 95 to 105 in those areas. And we got to watch a short wave again on Wednesday. We see a little divot here in the jet stream. That's our main piece of energy we're watching on Wednesday. This Storm Prediction Center is highlighting portions of the southern Great Lakes with an enhanced risk of severe storms in the orange shaded color here. That's a level 3 out of 5 on the scale. So now a little bit more ratcheted up on the severe weather threat here on Wednesday. This is for Detroit, the Cleveland area, and back just to the east of Chicago. So this includes the Fort Wayne, Indiana region, Toledo, Ohio as well. So this will be something to watch, but we do have a slight risk that extends into portions of Grand Rapids, Milwaukee, Chicago, down into Springfield, Illinois, and Indianapolis as we go through the Wednesday time frame. And we want to break down the threats that these storms could pose. So on Wednesday, we could have a chance for some wind gusts in excess of 60 miles per hour across the southern Great Lakes region, especially in the yellow and red shaded color here. Pick out your city. That's where we could see those threats for damaging winds. And then we have a tornado threat is actually one of the more primary threats as we go through the day on Wednesday. This is up to 5% in the brown shaded color, covering much of southern lower Michigan, northern and northeastern Indiana, and northern Ohio, Detroit, Grand Rapids, back here in toward portions of Fort Wayne, Indiana, Toledo, Ohio, and Cleveland. We'll be watching you guys as well, and maybe as far south as Columbus, Ohio, with that severe weather threat and tornado threat there on Wednesday. A 2% threat all the way back into eastern Iowa, southern Wisconsin, and north central Illinois. A couple isolated tornadoes will be possible there on Wednesday. And then a secondary threat with hail up to quarter size or slightly larger at times, especially in this yellow shade of color as we go into Wednesday afternoon and evening. So looking here Wednesday morning, that remnant MCS, however it develops this evening, will pose a risk downstream across portions of southern Wisconsin, far northern Illinois. Getting into Wednesday morning, we could have some ongoing severe weather warnings here into Wednesday morning. Damaging winds and tornadoes will be the primary threat, although a large hail cannot be ruled out as well. Then as we go through the afternoon, peak daytime heating. This model in particular is breaking up a line here from Detroit all the way down through Indianapolis into eastern Illinois. This very well could be a well-defined MCS with a full line of storms producing damaging wind, tornadoes, and hail through the afternoon. And then into the evening, this will march east here into portions of southeastern Canada and then across the eastern Ohio Valley as we go into Wednesday night before weakening. And then we'll watch upstream for more thunderstorm activity Wednesday overnight into Thursday. These storms could start to pose a risk for hail overnight as we go through Thursday morning. Overall, though, the total rainfall accumulation now through Thursday morning, a decent soaker here as well from Michigan, northern Ohio, and northern Indiana. Right now, this model in particular is not too crazy about the rain in Indiana or central Ohio. But I do want to stress there are other weather models that bring that full line through the Ohio Valley with heavier rainfall amounts of 1 to 2 inches across north central Indiana and north central Ohio. So that is something we'll have to watch out for going in toward Thursday morning. And then as we go into Thursday, we reload the atmosphere. We have another marginal risk all across the upper Midwest here from the UP of Michigan all the way southwestward into our southern areas and the northwestern portions of Kansas here into Nebraska. This is a marginal risk for now. This could get upgraded to a slight risk in future outlooks. We'll have to wait and see what the Storm Prediction Center does with that. But overall, the uncertainty on Thursday is with a capping inversion across the upper Midwest here. There's going to be a lot of sinking air here. So there's not going to be a lot of rising air, not a lot of rising motion here, especially Thursday afternoon. And think of it as a lid on a boiling pot of water. You just don't have the steam coming out. And that's basically what we have as we go into Thursday afternoon. So right now, the NAM model, the North American model, is not too crazy or too excited about any thunderstorm activity. And that's very well possible. It has more isolated thunderstorms popping up. Those will be more discreet, so they'll pose a risk for hail and tornadoes more than damaging winds. However, if this model is right, this is the Icon model, does fairly well as well. And this actually is different. It has more of an MCS starting to develop again upstream into the Minnesota region, into portions of the eastern Dakotas, northern Iowa. And at times, this would start to propagate more east-southeast along a gradient here that will set up along the northeastern periphery of that ridge. And this would pose a risk for more damaging winds rather than large hail and tornadoes. So there still is some uncertainty with the intensity and the coverage of thunderstorms on Thursday afternoon. It's only Tuesday right now, and this is the type of weather pattern we're in. So make sure to stay tuned as we get closer to Thursday. I will have updates on this. But looking generally late week, a fairly energetic jet stream that is in the mid levels across the upper Midwest will start to see a dip here as a trough develops across southeastern Canada Friday into Saturday, and that will take us through the end of July here. And overall, my severe weather forecast Friday into Saturday with that jet stream moving further south and the instability reservoir very strong across the Missouri region into the Central Plains, the northeastern periphery of that ridge will have to watch for another MCS developing in southern portions of Minnesota, northern Iowa, and then having a tendency to move east-southeast through northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, into northern Indiana Friday night, and into Saturday morning. This is where I have a likely severe weather threat for my 40 to 60% confidence that severe weather will be looking likely in that zone. But anywhere in the yellow, we could have severe weather. It's possible. I have up to a 40% chance of confidence in that happening in your area, highlighted in yellow Friday into Saturday. But overall, though, no matter how you slice it, this pattern is going to stay the same, mainly through the early August timeframe through August 3rd. The only difference is there's going to be a trough up here into the portions of the Great Lakes regions in our easternmost regions, and then that will provide us with at least near normal temperatures across the northern half of our viewing area, but still above average temperatures across our southern half, across Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri, and southern Illinois here and down into Kentucky. Those areas will remain hot and bake through the heat as we go through early August, and then that will have a tendency to push the precipitation a little bit further west. So our west central most areas will have above normal precipitation July 30th through August 3rd, with more near normal precipitation for our eastern areas into the eastern Great Lakes down into the Ohio Valley. So that's what we see in the long term, and we'll keep an eye on this and keep you updated as we go further along. Well, thank you guys so much for all the support on here. If you have not subscribed to the channel and you are new, make sure to subscribe. We just hit 200 subscribers the other day. I do appreciate it. Leave a like, a thumbs up down below the video if you like today's content, and I'll have a great new video update here as we move further along with the week and keep you updated on the severe weather, the heat, and all of that as we move forward. Have a great rest of your week, folks.